Water crisis in Benton Harbor, Michigan. Very similar to what took place in Flint. Benton Harbor is about 190 miles west of Flint and sits near the shores of Lake Michigan. In 2018, the lead contamination found in Benton Harbor's water supply was 22 parts per billion in its tap water, far higher than the federal action level of 15 parts per billion and higher even than nearby Flint at the height of its water crisis. But here's the worst part. A town across the bridge from Benton Harbor has clean water. St. Joseph is only an 8-minute drive, but has an entirely different story. Benton Harbor is 85% black. St. Joseph is 85% white. In Benton Harbor, more than 45% of residents live below the poverty line. They cross the bridge into St. Joseph, and the poverty rate is just 7%, well below the state average. So how did it happen? According to the city's website, its water distribution system is over 100 years old, and existing water lines to homes vary in ages. Many homes built before the 1960s likely have some type of lead component in their service line. So what is happening in Benton Harbor? In 2019, the city began replacing lead service lines and will continue until all lead lines have been replaced. Benton Harbor was awarded a $5.5 million grant from the EPA, which will help replace approximately 900 lead service lines over the next 4 years. But until then, the state advises residents to refrain from using tap water for anything and has promised to expand the free water distribution. Okay, this is strange. Dr. Mustafa Santiago-Lee, former senior advisor for environmental justice, EPA, Pamela Safisha Hill, assistant professor of social work, University of Texas at Arlington, Lauren Victoria Burke, NNPA, and the Griel. Mustafa, this is one of those issues that, again, when we see unfolding, this is why you see the battle in D.C. fighting for infrastructure dollars, because cities like Benton Harbor have to replace old lines.
Yeah, I mean, we've got these sacrifice zones that exist across our country. And what you find is that, communities like Benton Harbor, because of their exposures to lead, their kids, will end up having neurological disorders. You lower your IQ points, liver and kidney diseases, and a number of other conditions that are a part of it. And so what they're telling folks is, over the next 4 years, you can't cook with the water, you can't drink with the water, and you can't bathe with the water. And that's why we need folks on Capitol Hill to move with much more expediency in getting these infrastructure bills passed. And in the meantime, we got to also have the state of Michigan actually making real investments in Benton Harbor, because folks have known about this for a while. So for them to act like this is something that just popped up on their radar is untrue. So one, we need the feds to do better, but we also need the states to do better.
Well, and again, we talk about funding. Look, this is one of those issues that states must deal with in the federal government. But if you're a resident, what the hell, Lauren? I mean, you can't use the damn tap water. So, I mean, to talk about a huge inconvenience, are they still paying water bills?
Right. And of course, they're still paying water bills. These are the reasons why when you see things like what Senator Manchin and Senator Sinema are doing, this has a real world consequence, the delaying in the vote, the delaying of getting things done. And unfortunately, too, I think this is one of the reasons, unfortunately, why initially Donald Trump's message caught on when he talked about America first, because people are so used to hearing about foreign aid and billions going overseas and so forth and so on. And of course, we have this infrastructure issue here in the United States. People do not like to hear about Americans not being able to get basic services, which of course, water being a basic service. We all saw how Flint, of course, blew up in the news. This should blow up in the news as well, because it's just really sort of ridiculous. It's the type of thing that we like to report on here in the United States when we refer to third world countries. But the idea that it's happening right here, I don't happen to know, and maybe Dr. Ali or Dr. Hill knows this. I don't happen to know who the member of Congress who represents that district is, but I'm sure that they're probably making noise in the background. But it is ridiculous to hear about, just on its face.
Dr. Hill,
Yes.
again, what we are dealing with here continues to be with the infrastructure problems. People who are poor, people who are black, more impacted than other places.
Yes, yes. And the sad reality is that this is nothing new. We've always seen this in our communities where people of color have always suffered, where we have toxic waste in our backyard and nobody seems to care. Once we get it out on the news, we try to clean things up. But the real reality is that this makes us sick. This is a major health issue that has to be addressed. And we just can't let it go by. And it makes us wonder, well, where else is this happening and we're not hearing about it? So we need to know, more details. In fact, we hope that other people will let us know what they're experiencing in their own backyards, because we know that this is happening in a number of communities. And so we have to just do better and find out where we can make an impact.
Well, I think where we can impact again is when we talk about what is being done to with the infrastructure bill to ensure that our communities are getting those resources. This is one of those things, Mustafa. This is your focus. But when we talk about issues, people will bring up criminal justice reform. They'll bring up education. They'll bring up voting rights. But environmental concerns are not as high on the agenda of enough African Americans.
Yeah, the administration has an excellent opportunity to tie both the the reconciliation bill and the bipartisan infrastructure bill to these types of real world issues that are happening. And to answer the question, when we worked on what was happening in Flint, we found out that there were over 3,000 locations across the country that had higher levels of lead in their water than Flint did. Benton Harbor is one example of that. When they did some testing in Benton Harbor, even though that 22 parts per billion number is what people have been talking about, they found in certain locations over 880 parts per billion in certain locations in Benton Harbor. That's just mind-blowing. Those numbers are that high. When you get that type of exposure, there is devastating impacts that will happen to your body. There is no safe level for lead. And the Biden administration should be touting that and talking about how we can actually help to not only protect people, but bring hope back to these communities by actually doing the right thing.
Well, again, we'll see exactly what happens with the administration, what they do, but also you got a Democratic governor. You had a Republican governor beforehand when you had the issue with Flint. So the question is, what is she going to do? And that really is one of those things that we have to look at. And this is also an example, Lauren, of stories like this not getting the same level of attention nationally unless something else actually happens.
Right. No, absolutely. And it was actually good to see with the Flint story. It did eventually get blown up. Sometimes it takes, some sort of local leader there that figures out a way to really sort of get into the press and blow it up. And unfortunately, our media cycles are non-existent. I mean, obviously, we used to live on the 24-hour media cycle in the days of the newspaper, but now there really is no media cycle. It's just everything, every other second, we're moving on to the next story, moving on to the next case. But if somebody can blow up this type of story, it's such an easy story to understand. So it's easy for people to lock into it.
Folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
Once upon a time, there lived a princess with really long hair who was waiting for a prince to come save her. But really, who has time for that?
Let's go. Feeling myself. I'm feeling
She ordered herself a ladder with Prime one-day delivery, and she was out of there.
I'm with some hood girls looking back at it, and a good girl in my tax bracket.
Now, her hairdressing empire is killing it. And the prince? Well, who cares? Prime changed everything.
Time to be smart.
Roland Martin's doing this every day.
Oh, no punches!
Thank you, Roland Martin, for always giving voice to the issues.
Look for Roland Martin in the whirlwind, to quote Marcus Garvey again.
The video looks phenomenal, so I'm really excited to see it on my big screen.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
I got to defer to the brilliance of Dr. Carr and to the brilliance of the Black Star Network.
I am rolling with Roland all the way. Honored to be on a show that you own. A black man owns the show.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now. Like, wow, Roland was amazing on there.
Hey, Black, I love y'all.
I can't commend you enough about this platform that you've created for us to be able to share who we are, what we're doing in the world, and the impact that we're having.
Let's be smart. Bring your eyeballs home.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared. You dig?